Now, let's talk rugby league. So the Kangaroos 66-6 over Italy. Some blowout scores again this morning. Are you worried by blowouts at this stage of the World Cup?
I know it's not the rainbows and unicorns position, but I am a little bit. Like, Australia's just had glorified training runs really the whole tournament, when you think about it. When I was sitting there watching Italy the other morning, I was thinking, like, some of those early tries were just basically catch and pass training drills that you'd see with a little bit more stiffness in the defence. I'll be interesting to see what happens against Lebanon in the quarterfinal. Like, if they lap Lebanon in the quarterfinal, like you probably expect them to do, like they go into a semi against New Zealand pretty soft, Australia.
Yeah. So do blowout scores harm the cause of trying to grow the game internationally, or does exposure at World Cups make up for that? Do you learn along the way? What's your take?
I think you do, but the problem with international football is just how much these minnow nations, how much football they get, and how much money actually gets filtered through to the federations and how they spend it. And unless you get more and more matches, which is hard to do in an already busy rugby league cycle, it's going to be hard to give international football any more relevance than what it should. But which I think is madness, because international football is the thing that AFL doesn't have, and rugby league hasn't made enough of it, and self-interest over the years, particularly and including Australia, means that it's held it back in many respects. But I do think the blowouts are, when we're celebrating one Italian try yesterday, like it was like they'd scored a try that's equalised, an equalising try. Like, it just didn't. I found it to be a bit of a doddle yesterday, to be honest.
Daly, Cherry Evans, Nathan Cleary playing together. So, I said it first up there. I can't see a world where Mal Meninga doesn't have Nathan Cleary as his starting halfback. So, did you see a point in putting the two of them together, aside from giving Cameron Munster a bit of a breather?
It answered nothing. He got nothing out of it. Like, there was a struck match between them in terms of their influence on the game, but again, it was hardly. They're hardly up against the stiffest of opposition. I think that one of the great quotes from Mal was that he had a dream about what the team looked like. That's an interesting take on it, isn't it? Right. What other things he was dreaming about? He said he dreamt what the team would look like, but he didn't say what was in that dream. If he doesn't pick Nathan Cleary as a starting halfback, he is dead set dreaming, I think. I know it's a really hard one. I can see, like, it must be tough, because Cherry Evans is the most experienced Kangaroos player in that squad. He's got those combinations with Hunt and Harry Grant. He's won 2 of the last 3 Origins, but Nathan Cleary's time is here, you'd think. And the way that he combines with Isaiah Yeo, which is just as important as any combination with his dummy half, the way that modern rugby league's played, I just think it's just at that time where you can't deny him any longer. And I just think Mal needs to make a call either way and say, that's it. This is what we're going with. He'll have to. He'll have to. I know that they'll beat Lebanon, of course, but they need some polish going into the crunch match against New Zealand.
So where does incumbency and loyalty sit? A crunch match. Yes. Where does incumbency sit? I mean, I think it was Brandy who pointed out incumbency doesn't count for much at the moment, simply because of what's been not happening in the last couple of years. Yeah, Daly Cherry Evans is the incumbent halfback of the Australian team. They haven't played a test since, 2019? So different scenario, and obviously loyalty's there as well. So to my way of thinking, again, I can't see them busting open those partnerships that you've spoken about from Nathan Cleary's side to put in Daly Cherry Evans. And I think that was just, okay, look, we're going to get over Italy, we're going to get over Lebanon. Let's give DCE one more run. Let's let the two of them have a bit of fun, so to speak, which doesn't speak well for the World Cup, but that's the fact. And then Cleary slots in for Lebanon and beyond.
I agree. The end.
That was easy.
Well, that's why. Don't you think? Don't you think
well,
that that's
it has to be?
I just think it's inevitable. So Nathan Cleary's the future. Go with the future. No time like the present. Because I tell you what, if he ends up staying with Cherry Evans and they don't get through to the final, then there'll be all hell to pay.
Jake Trbojevic spoken about the Des Hasler sacking and the Pride jersey saga as well. So what's going on in that one?
Oh, God. Well, I love how all these Manly players are finally breaking their silence on everything now that they're on the other side of the world. Look, Jake Trbojevic didn't say anything that him and Tom haven't said before. They didn't say, they said they were going nowhere already. They said that it doesn't surprise that they're supporters of Des Hasler. I thought the most telling quote out of Jake Trbojevich's media opportunity over in the UK was that he said about the rainbow jumper, he said, look, for those players, their priority is religion and my priority is rugby league. And I thought that was quite a little, if you read into that how you want, but he's already been on the record, him and Tom, saying that they weren't exploring their options and looking to go elsewhere. The one that really, the person who made that as dramatic as it was their management company, who called the emergency meeting with their clients to discuss what's going on at Manly. The reality is they're both signed big long-term contracts and big contracts. So if they were to leave, Manly would have to kick in money for them to go elsewhere for, in Tom's case, the next 6 years. So I can't really see that. I could never see that happening, just even in terms of how it would work in terms of the cap either. But they weren't going to go anywhere. But in terms of, as I said, I thought that those comments about my priorities football, I thought that was just a little crack at the 7 who didn't play.
Well, I think also that's going to be one of the big stories of next year. What happens next time around? But we'll discuss that a little bit later on. What happens next time around that the Seagulls want to roll out the Pride jersey or the Everyone in League jersey?
You know what I don't get with this, right? So on those jumpers, there was just in the piping there was hardly any reference to it all. It's just like a little bit of rainbow. Couldn't the 7 players just wear the normal jumper with no rainbow? Was it that?
Well,
it's not like they would have been playing in like 2 completely different jumpers.
No, you know what?
7 jumpers would have had white, and the other jumpers would have had a little bit of rainbow in it.
Which we discussed at the time. I remember we discussed that at the time, and it goes back to the NRL guidelines. So it goes back. I can't wear a different jumper to you. If you've got, pink and green stripes, and I've got green and pink stripes the other way around, then it's considered a different jumper, which is madness. But they were the rules.
Half the time, the NRL can't even get it right in terms of like teams wearing very similar jumpers when they play. How often do you see that happen? Where the alternate strip of a visiting team is so similar to the home strip of the team that they're playing. Whether it's hard to distinguish the two of them, but they're worried about bloody stripes.
Now, listen, before we go, we've got a caller on the line, Russell from Forest Lake, who wants to have a say about the transfer window. Russell, Webby's still here before I have to let him go for his day job. You got a question for us?
Not so much a question, mate, but a statement on the ridiculousness of the transfer window in the NRL, where you got players, deciding tomorrow where they're going to end up in 18 months' time, where I think they need to look at going to a similar system to the real football soccer users and have 2 transfer windows and players move then and there, and that system works right down to the local levels in Australia, not just that elite level.
Yeah, we had a fairly good discussion about this last week, Russell. Obviously, it's starting to come to a bit of a head with the collective bargaining agreement being nutted out between the NRL and the Rugby League Players Association. So we've sort of dug a little bit deeper into this. But where do you think, Webby, are we any closer to seeing a resolution to some form of transfer window?
God, I reckon we've been talking about transfer. Last time we've been talking about transfer windows since I had hair. The last time. That's how long ago this has been going on and on about. They've got to do something. I like like a window in the middle of the year, a window right at the end of the season. And I just think this maddening situation where we were talking all throughout 2022 about what Cameron Munster was doing in 2024. all the way through. And the thing that stuns me is that the Players Association actually thinks it's great publicity for the game. Whereas if you talk to coaches and players, they hate it because it's such a distraction. Now, for a player like Cameron Munster, he can play out, he can get around it because he's such an experienced and talented player. But there's plenty of others that can't, and that it is a distraction for them. I mean, like you look at someone like Luke Brooks. He's had to deal with that for whether he's going to be there or not for the last 3 years. So I think something's got to change, but whether it does or not is another thing.